Welcome to the Nomad Studio. In this Nomad Sculpt tutorial, I'll show you some of my workflow tips for adding or adjusting small details on the sculpt. These little workflow tips are not as cool and flashy as sculpting, let's say, the Guardian's head or shoulder armor. But these little guys are just as important to the overall sculpt, and knowing how to organically create these whenever and wherever I want have become a valuable part of my sculpting workflow. And I want to share this workflow with you. And right now I'm adding in 3 new things to my Night Rain Guardian sculpt. The first one being this diamond shaped armor on the edge of the wings. The second, tubes along the elbow guard. And lastly, these diamond shaped metal pieces on the front side. To be more specific, I'll go through how I organically create mirror repeaters along a specific axis. I'll be doing that to mirror this diamond shaped piece on the other side. Next, I'll show you how to fix a mirror repeater that is not aligning to the object. We can see that the tube being mirrored downwards on the y-axis is not matching up to the one on top, so we have to fix that. And lastly, for the skirt edges, we have 5 pieces, and we will need to make 5 identical metal pieces for each of them. So I'll show you how to make that possible with the sync function in the outliner tab. By the end of this video, I hope that you'll learn how to create new items at specific custom locations to build up details on your own sculpt, because without the details, the sculpt just won't look as good. First up, let's mirror the wing armor piece. Initially, I was building up my wings based on this back view reference image, and now that I look at the other angles, I realize that there's another identical piece on the other side. So we can make use of the mirror repeater to fix this. Now, if you're new to working in 3D, you would probably be more familiar with using the mirror repeater along the wall axis. And that's a great way to start and build the intuition of working with symmetry. And I'm still using this method now when I need to. For example, this elbow guard geometry and the front details of the skirt are using a mirror repeater along the Y-wall axis. I can even put this skirt tube under the same skirt mirror repeater. I don't know why I didn't do this earlier. I'll just drag this under it now. Look at how easy that got mirrored. I can see everything is not aligned properly, but that'll be a fix for another day. These are all work in progress, and I'm just fixing the sculpt as I go. There, it's done. I also have a mirror repeater for the wings and the armor pieces, but doing this will only allow us to mirror things along this y-axis. We can't use it to mirror something on this specific angle. So to mirror this object, we'll need a new mirror repeater along this specific axis. So let me show you how to do just that. I've already created these armor pieces on the edge of the wings, so I'll select one of these geometries and activate the Gizmo tool with my macro pad. You can do the same with this Gizmo shortcut on the bottom left. Then in the outliner tab, open the Add menu by clicking this plus icon, and in the Add menu, make sure that the On Gizmo checkbox is checked. If this checkbox is grayed out for you, remember to activate the Gizmo tool. You can see when I deselect the Gizmo tool that it disappears. So with the Gizmo tool selected and the On Gizmo activated and checked, we can now add a new mirror repeater under the Repeaters tab. So I'll go ahead and click on the mirror repeater. And if the mirror repeater is not showing up like this, chances are that you're working on a mirrored object and you're selecting the wrong object. So zooming out a bit, you can see that my wings are mirrored using this mirror repeater here. And if I disable this, the physical sculpt is on the right side. And I've been working on the mirrored side of my sculpt. So let's restart that on the correct side this time around. I'll select this object, activate the Gizmo tool, and add a mirror repeater with the On Gizmo checkbox activated. Now I can see that the new mirror repeater is aligned to the gizmo of this object. Now when we create a new mirror repeater, it will appear above the object in the outliner. So let's detach the box from the mirror repeater. Let's keep this isolated, and using only the y-axis so that it only travels down this line, I'll move the mirror repeater to the location of the object that I want to mirror to, just so that it looks neater this way. Then I will select this box and drag the box under the mirror repeater. And now we have the diamond shape mirrored on the other side. I will rotate this a little bit to adjust the position. And keep in mind that this is all work in progress, so a lot of things are looking really messy right now. And that is done. Now we are one step closer to the final design. Something to take note, I'm not selecting an arbitrary gizmo position. I know that when I was creating these armor pieces, I only moved them along one axis. So if I draw a line, I know that all of them are resting along the same line. To expand on my point, if you have a sculpt design where the objects are staggered like this, every object has a different gizmo orientation, then choose the one with the gizmo orientation that you want. In this case, I'll use this one and use this to create the mirror repeater. And then same thing, isolate the mirror repeater, move it to where you want it to be, then use this mirror repeater on the object that you want to mirror. Which brings me to the second part of the tutorial, which is to create symmetrical tube details on his elbow guard. So I created a mirror repeater using the same method, using the elbow guard gizmo position for the mirror repeater. But the problem with this is that I sculpted the object with only one plane of symmetry, which is the X symmetry, to mirror the left and the right side. And after sculpting this a little bit more, I realized that I want the top and bottom side to be mirrored too. And this happens all the time for me. I'm always trying to figure things out, and sometimes it's just difficult to tell what the shape is supposed to be until much later on. I didn't think of mirroring the y-axis when sculpting this, so the mirror tubes are not aligned as a result. So let's fix that. So I'll look at this geometry in solo view mode, which is this button right here with the magnifying glass. Then open the symmetry tab. Make sure that the mirror axis is more or less in the middle of the object. Then with the X and Y plane activated, I'll mirror the object to fix the symmetry. Now the object is perfectly symmetrical, both left and right and up and down. Next, this happens sometimes, especially when I'm not careful with my sculpt. The gizmo and symmetry axes are not aligned. That's not good because you want to create the mirror repeater on the gizmo position, but if the gizmo is not aligned to the symmetry plane of the sculpt, then it will just not align with the symmetry of this object. So with the gizmo tool selected, I can click on the pivot button here and reset the gizmo pivot to the center of the object. And because I know that the object is perfectly symmetrical now, the gizmo will be aligned to the symmetry plane. Remember to disable the pivot adjustment mode so that we can access the gizmo tool again. Now in most cases, if I didn't do anything stupid on my sculpt, which I probably did, then the gizmo and the symmetry planes will not really be that misaligned. But in this case, I can kind of see a little bit of misalignment, even though I tried to put both of them in the object center. So I can kind of eyeball it to match it up almost exactly. But sometimes it's faster to just redo things, especially when I have the base shape kind of figured out and I'm not sculpting out of thin air. It's a lot simpler to just restart this sculpt and do it properly from the start. And because the position of the gizmo is exactly where I want it to be, I can create a new quad sphere, scale it down, and this time around make sure that I have both the X and Y and local symmetry planes activated. And I can go ahead and sculpt this again. The most important thing is that now I have an object with the symmetry axis perfectly aligned to the gizmo position. And before I forget, let me go back to the physical object instead of the mirrored one. And with this, I can create a mirror repeater that is perfectly aligned in the X symmetry and the Y symmetry. So again, create the mirror repeater at the on gizmo position, separate the mirror repeater, and let's drag the tube to the new mirror repeater. I will delete the other things now. With the new mirror repeater, the tube is not mirroring at the bottom side, and that's because I haven't activated the y-axis yet. So I'll go ahead and click on the y-axis. And now this tube should be aligning perfectly well on this new geometry. This is one of my favorite ways of adding details quickly to my base shapes, and adding things like tubes to the edges of a sculpt really polishes the overall look. We are down to the final part. Let's add some details to the skirt armor. You can see that my gizmo position is up here, just so that it hinges at the correct position. But we want to use the gizmo position to create this metal piece on the edge. So I'll activate the edit pivot mode and bring this down roughly to where I want it to be. Now to create these 5 metal pieces, I can create one at one end of the skirt and instance this one. You can see that I'm really encountering stupid problems like that. Let me figure out what is going on with the mirror repeater. And yes, it's not aligned to the wall axis. So since I want to create a mirror at the wall axis, and if I don't activate the Gizmo tool and this is deactivated, I can create this at the default position, like so. Now I can bring this up again and bring all the objects to the new mirror repeater. So now this should be mirrored correctly. You can see that the old mirror repeater wasn't working fine, and now it should be correct. Let's delete this mirror repeater. I don't even know how I make all these mistakes, but that's just how it is. And it's really easy to learn how to overcome these things with more practice. So back to what I was talking about, I can easily instance these objects and put them around like this. But this means that the placements will not be identical. So that's a better way to do this with the help of the sync function in the outliner menu. To use this, we need all the 5 skirt geometries to be instances of each other. You can tell that these are instances by the colored bars on the left of the objects. So these 3 objects are sharing the same blue colored bar. If it's not, then I will have to replace everything with an instance object, like so. I'm using a mirror repeater to mirror these 2 pieces. So I can go ahead and recreate this, rotate this a little bit, and that should match up to the other object. After you have instanced your object, we can activate the sync function on the top of the outliner menu. And we will do the exact same steps of creating the quad sphere and shaping it down to a diamond shape. The only difference now is that instead of just one quad sphere appearing, it will appear on all 5 objects instead, like so. So it looks a little bit crazy now, and that's because the spheres are all too large. So using the 3 dots menu on the primitive menu, I can click on this, and I can bring down the radius of the objects. If this is your first time using instances, something important to take note is that Gizmo adjustments do not reflect on the other instances. And you may be wondering, what's the point in that? Well, we just made use of that instancing behavior to create this skirt armor base. Because the Gizmo adjustments are individual, we can move these pieces around and I can make sculpting changes on any of them at any time. And that's why I'm not scaling the quad sphere down with the Gizmo tool. I'm instead adjusting the primitive settings to adjust all the spheres together. I'll reduce the post-subdivision count, validate the object, let's paint it silver, and activate the symmetry planes in the local axis. I just realized that I need to push the objects out, and as I said earlier, we can't use the Gizmo to push this out because then we'll need to adjust all 5 of them. So I just deactivate the Z symmetry, and using my favorite drag tool, I will push these out a little bit more. So let's make the diamond shape again. I'm just moving things around, smoothing it out, moving it around and smoothing out until I get this diamond piece. Obviously the skirt details are not matching up, so let's adjust that a bit. All the proportions are wrong, just ignore it for now. And then to create the upper piece, use the same method that was used to create this object. I am going to move this up to this new position, and I will do the same thing for the top piece. And now I have the upper piece done. And if I really need to, I can just move them all up a little bit more with the Gizmo tool, but the final adjustments are for another time. And remember to uncheck the sync function when you don't need it anymore. Hopefully through this tutorial, you can see how I organically create new details around my sculpt and how I fix my sculpt in real time. I'll make more tutorials on various things as I keep going with my personal projects on what I find interesting, fun, and possibly helpful to you. I'll see you in the next one.